Have you ever heard about the man who broke his left arm and left leg? Well, he was all right after that. Now that we've broken the ice, let's dive into a tale that's sure to tickle your funny bone. Once upon a time, in the quiet town of Pennsylvania, lived a man named Chuck. Now, Chuck wasn't your everyday average Joe. No, Chuck had a knack for turning even the most mundane situations into uproarious events. You could say he had a PhD in practical jokes and a master's in mishap management. One day, Chuck decided he needed a new hobby. He thought, why not try baking? So, he walked into a bakery and asked the baker, "How do you make a donut?" The baker, a stout man with a thick beard, squinted at Chuck and said, "Well, it's a piece of cake." Chuck, with his wit as quick as a whip, replied, "Oh, I thought it was a round of bread." Undeterred, Chuck decided to give baking a whirl. He gathered all the ingredients, preheated the oven, and got to work. But remember, this is Chuck we're talking about. He soon realized he had mixed up the sugar and salt containers. Instead of sweet, fluffy cupcakes, he ended up with salty, dense rocks. Chuck's neighbor, a grumpy old man named Mr. Crank, loved to complain about everything. He was the sort who'd complain if his ice cream was too cold. Hearing about Chuck's baking blunder, he decided to give Chuck a piece of his mind. He marched over grumbling, "Chuck, you couldn't bake a cake even if the recipe was stapled to your forehead." Chuck, ever the jester, replied, "Well, Mr. Crank, I baked a batch of rock cakes just for you." And so, Chuck's baking adventure ended with a bang, or rather a crunch. He never did master the art of baking, but he did manage to make everyone in Pennsylvania laugh and even got Mr. Crank to crack a smile. So the next time you find yourself in a sticky situation, remember Chuck. Life may not always be a piece of cake, but with a dash of humor, you can surely make it a donut. And remember, if anyone ever tells you that you're bad at baking, just say, "Well, I guess I'm on a roll." Because after all, isn't life sweeter when we can laugh at our own mishaps? And as Chuck always said, if you can't make a donut, make rock cakes. At least they'll be handy when you need to throw something at a pesky neighbor. Now that's what I call a recipe for laughter.